Hey guys, it's Courtney, and today's video is part of the Trinity Stamps giveaway hop. And the theme is shaker cards. And if you guys know or don't know, Trinity Stamps makes the absolute best embellishments on the market. So I'm going to be using a Crafter's Heart stamp set as well as the Rainbow Sherbet stars embellishments, and I'm going to start by stamping out this large heart, which is made up of a bunch of crafty things. And I'm stamping this a total of 3 times because it's a brand new stamp and my ink pad's a bit dry, but I'm stamping this with Blackout ink by Ink on 3 onto a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock because I am going to be coloring some of these images within this large image, I guess you could say. So I'm not going to show you all of the coloring, but I am going to show you mainly how I did the coloring and the different color combinations that I used. Now, the coloring's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. So just keep it simple. Don't stress yourself out over it. However, if you are looking to practice coloring, this is a great way to do it without the stress of having it be perfect. So I'm going to start off with my blue combination, and I did show you a few of the different things that I colored with this particular combination, and I kind of just scattered them throughout. I didn't really have any kind of specific things I needed to be certain colors. I just randomly colored certain things with certain colors. Now, I was looking at, off to the side, the embellishment pack that I'm going to be using for the shaker pieces so that all of the colors that I chose kind of sort of match the stars within that embellishment kit. Now, I pretty much kept a light or a center light source rather for pretty much everything, but like I said, your shading does not have to be perfect. Your blending does not have to be perfect. So this was the blue combination. And again, obviously you can see that I used a 4-color combination. Not necessarily. You can definitely do 2. You can definitely color these in solid. I just didn't have anything that matched it perfectly. So it was easier for me to do a little bit of shading. That way I can kind of manipulate the color a little bit to make it match the embellishments a little bit more. So once I was done with all of the blues, I moved on to the next color combination. And like I said, I'm not going to show you all of the coloring, mainly for these little swatches. I'm just going to show you the color combinations that I used on that because I did use all the different combinations on that one particular image. So it's best just to show you that way. So I moved on to a YG combination, which is closely matches one of the stars in that embellishment pack, and then colored a few different items with that same color combination. And then moving on to more of an orange, and this is kind of like a true sherbet color. And I know some people say sherbet or sherbet or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to pronounce it the New York way like every other video and call it sherbet. Next, I am going to move on to the pink combination, again 4 colors, and you'll notice that once I get to the yellow combination, I am only bringing in 3 different colors, and that is simply because I didn't have enough markers. I have a lot of markers that are running dry, so my options are a little bit more limited, but you can see that I brought in an orange color for my shading, and this is what's really going to give you the contrast whenever you're coloring something yellow. You either want to use an E marker or a YR marker. So once I had all of my colors in there, now I can bring out my cool grays for all of the white areas as well as the gray or the, I guess you could say, metal. So for the white areas, my darkest color is going to be the C5, and then I'll blend that out with the C3 and C1, and then I'll quickly go over where the C1 meets the white space of the paper with a colorless blender, just so it looks more like a seamless blend and there's not that harsh line in between. Now for all of the gray areas or the metal areas or whatever, I'm going to go just 1 step darker and bring in the C7, but keep all of the same colors with the exception of the colorless blender for this one. So once all of my coloring was done, you can fussy cut all of these images out, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I'm using my scan and cut. Now there's a lot of little dots and little hearts and little sequins that are either almost touching the images or very, very close to them. And if you guys have a scan and cut, you'll notice that if there's anything too close to something else, it's going to count it as one object, which isn't the end of the world. I could always fussy cut it. But in order to avoid that, I am using a white gel pen just to pretty much cover up those little dots and those little stars that are really, really close to the images that I actually want cut out. That way, when I run it through my scan and cut, they won't register. So it won't scan those areas that I use my white gel pen, and it will only cut out the images. Now, am I going to get a perfect border on all of these? Probably not, but these are going to be part of my shaker bits or part of my shaker pieces, so I'm not really too concerned. The coloring doesn't need to be perfect, and neither does the cutting, whether you're fussy cutting or using your scan and cut. So once all of that was done, now we are going to go ahead and create the card itself. I'm using 2 different die sets here, and this is from the Slimline series from Trinity. I'm using the scalloped card panels and banners and the stitched card panel and windows. And you can see that I'm just placing the window right there in the center of that stitched panel and just sticking that down with some Post-it note tape so that it doesn't shift around when running it through my Gemini. So this window will go directly over that pink card stack, which is just part of my stash. I have no idea what brand it is or what color it is. I just grabbed it. And then I can assemble my shaker. So I have little squares cut out with some acetate, and I am just going to stick those down with some Tambomono multi-glue on the back of all of these, or all 3 of these little windows. And then I can lay out my foam tape. Now, I'm trying to use up this foam tape. I bought this from Amazon, and at first I really, really loved it. And then I was finding the red backing everywhere I went, everywhere the cats went. They ended up in my car. They ended up in the laundry room. They ended up everywhere. So I'm just trying to use it up. It's cheap, and I like cheap, but I prefer the Scotch foam tape after using this for a while, but I am trying to use it up. And the good thing about it is I really didn't have to cut it down too much. It pretty much fit those separated areas of the frame perfectly. So once I had all of my foam tape laid out, then I can add my shaker pieces. So I'm going to take my images here that I had cut out, and I am going to put these face down. And you want to make sure that these are all face down because they're not going to flip over. There's not enough room for them to flip over. So I kind of just spaced these out to make sure that I wasn't overstuffing any of the windows with these images. And then once I was happy with that, I can go ahead and add some of the stars. And I just kind of shook in not too many because these shaker windows are smaller and I already have a lot going on. So I didn't add too many of them, but you can go as crazy as you want. Now, when you remove the backing of the foam tape, you want to be super careful when you're pulling this back because as your fingers get stuck to the areas that you've already removed, your shaker pieces can go flying. With this foam tape, it is super, super sticky. And I did notice that I have a cat hair stuck to one of the areas, which is really no surprise in my household, but I did try to remove that, but my shaker pieces just kept moving all over the place. So I decided to leave it there, and whoever ends up getting this card will have an extra special surprise from Frankie as well, because his cat hair is very, very noticeable once everything is put together, but it is what it is. So once I had all of the backing removed, I am going to take a piece of white cardstock that is cut just a little bit smaller than this panel itself, and I'm going to lay that directly on the back. And this way I don't have to worry about lining this upside down on that pink panel. Once I had that down, I can just go ahead and add glue or whatever adhesive that you want to the back of this panel. And then it's much easier to line up on that pink panel rather than trying to flip everything upside down and just hope that it comes out right. So once that's done, I will adhere this down to the card base itself, and I'm just using a white card base, and this is cut just a little bit larger than that scalloped panel, so not a whole lot of the card base is actually going to be showing. For my sentiment, I'm using one of the sentiments from that same Crafter's Heart stamp set, and I'm going to take the rest of this pink cardstock here and treat that with my anti-static tool and stamp this out with Versamark ink. I had it kind of crooked on my acrylic block, so I had to fix that before stamping that onto my card or my cardstock there. So sprinkled on some white embossing powder and heat set that, and then cut this down into a very skinny strip. I originally brought out my regular size tonic trimmer, which I love for most things, but to get a skinny sentiment strip, sometimes I struggle with it. So I ended up bringing out my little mini tonic trimmer, which I love for sentiment strips. It's so tiny, but it works so well for small strips like this. And then I will adhere this right across the middle of my card panel. And I just glued this down flat with the Tombow Mono multi glue because I already have a ton of dimension going on. Gonna finish up the card with a few of those embellishments kind of scattered all over the place, and kind of picked out different colors to kind of mix things up a little bit. And that is it. That is the card for today. All of the information for the hop will be listed in the description box below, as well as the link to the next person and the information on how to enter the giveaway. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today, and have a great day. Bye.